Greetings, friends. It was my little sister who first brought to my attention the fact that shadow people and other forms of shadows can make physical contact with people and objects in our world. Recently, I asked my little sister, whom I will call Joy, to recount to me her experiences with shadow people. Though most were harmless, there seemed to be one being that returned every few years to terrify her. I never knew about this until the day I interviewed her for this video. It all started when she was just 6 years old, living in our childhood home. The same one which has been a persistent locale for my nightmares all my life, despite the wonderful childhood we all enjoyed there. You might have heard me speak of it before in my dream chronicles. There was a picturesque front room. It was the first thing you saw when entering through the front door. If you grew up in the 90s like we did, you probably know the kind of room I mean. It was one of those places where children were never supposed to venture off of the long plastic floor mat, let alone play around on the pristine carpet that always had the tracks marked into it from frequent vacuuming. There was an ornate wooden dresser, a small couch, and a never-used coffee table in the space as well. Perched atop that dresser was a white porcelain cat my mom got from a thrift store. Its painted eyes stared with a placid expression. The four of us children used to believe its gaze tracked us as we went about our daily lives at home. One day as she was passing by, Joy thought she saw something coming out from behind the feline figurine. She said it looked like the rear end of a live cat, but it didn't look quite right. Its appearance was misty and wavy. It seemed to pause briefly after she noticed it, and then swiftly leapt away a moment later. She began to see the same bizarre image of a cat's tail and rear legs, with the front of it always just out of view, over and over again, in various rooms of the house. She saw it so often, she began to suspect that a stray cat had snuck its way in and had been surviving on our food scraps. One day, she saw it again ducking just behind a storage trunk in the kitchen. My other little sister, whom I'll call Ray, happened to be there. 6-year-old Joy asked 4-year-old Ray if she saw anything back there, and Ray said she saw what looked like a cat's butt. The two children spent the next few days trying to lure the cat out, using various rudimentary and probably laughable childlike techniques. They never felt threatened by the cat's presence, but rather thought of it as a game. A few years passed without her seeing the cat, but Joy would still see shadow people every now and then, usually appearing as children wandering around the backyard. It reminded her of the way our mother used to see them, except these always seemed quite aloof, compared to the sinister ones my mom once knew. One night when Joy was about 9 years old, sleeping in a bunk bed above Ray, she kept feeling like someone below her was hanging onto the bars of the bed frame, swinging around. She complained to Ray to stop playing, but Ray insisted she wasn't doing anything. Fed up, and not believing her sister, Joy positioned herself to quickly look down and catch her in the act. When she felt the commotion again, she quickly looked down only to see that her sister was fast asleep. Almost disappointed, she laid back down facing the wall. Seconds later, she felt a large, powerful hand inching in to grasp her neck. Distinct feelings of pressure from fingers crawling their way over her skin, tightening at an alarming rate. She was immediately petrified with fear. Her eyes darted around in the darkness, unsure of where to focus. As the hand wrapped around her neck, she turned her head. The feeling vanished into thin air, and nothing was there. My family moved into another home shortly after I went away to the military. Throughout her teenage years, she would still see the shadows. For the vast majority of the time, they were generally unconcerned with her, until she turned 17, and one appeared inside the new house. She arrived from school one day to an empty home. She immediately felt uneasy upon walking through the door, as if she was being watched. She walked through the house, turning a corner to enter a long hallway, when she noticed the imposing figure of a shadow man in a doorway behind her. It stood in a threatening posture that made her even more unsettled, but she simply continued to walk away, knowing that usually the shadows meant no harm. After a few steps, she looked back and realized it was now walking behind her, matching pace. She started walking faster, and it followed suit. She started running, looked back and saw that it was now chasing her at full speed as she ran toward her room. She cut into a guest bathroom and quickly locked the door. After several minutes of waiting inside, fed up with the torment, she decided to shove the door open regardless of the outcome. Of course, he was gone. She wondered if it was the same entity that once tried to choke her in bed. Now in her 20s, Joy has seen shadow people on rare occasions. Once while working at a popular shoe store. One day while opening early, she heard something that sounded like someone jumping and landing on top of racks in the storeroom. Wood and metal clattered together as she went in to investigate. When she arrived, she saw a shadow child crouching playfully inside one of the shelves. The clear contrast of pitch black against the wood grain. The most recent and most disturbing incident happened only a year or two ago. Joy was just getting into the house, again, alone, waiting on Ray to come home from work. She was planning on going out with friends. Our parents were out of town. From the moment she entered the house, she felt that familiar presence watching her. She decided not to wait any longer and left the house, arming the alarm system. As she walked out the door, the dark presence became so pervasive that she ran to her car to escape the feeling of being exposed and drove off. A few blocks down the road, she heard her cell phone ringing. She picked it up, looked at the screen, and saw the word home on the caller ID. She slowed the car to a crawl as she answered the phone to hear the words, "Intruder alarm. Intruder alarm," over and over again. It was the home alarm system calling. The infrared motion detectors had been tripped just moments after she left the house. My dad called her after himself receiving the automated call response, knowing that Joy was in the house. He told her the police were on their way, and to call Ray and let her know not to go home. She met up with Ray on the road and told her what happened. 2 police officers responded, and the girls let them inside to search the house. They searched every room and closet where someone could hide, and found nothing out of the ordinary. All the doors and windows were locked appropriately. Needless to say, the girls both canceled their plans and stayed home together that night. Thanks for listening, my friends. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out my dream chronicles and original stories on my channel. Everything you find here so far is written and narrated by yours truly. Stay tuned for more shadow people stories in the future, along with many other bizarre or creepy interviews with the many interesting people I've come across throughout my life. I'm Mr. X, and may your nights be full of dreams.